Okay, thanks. So, as I said, I changed my talk, and the reason is actually that what happened in last month, and this huge and continuous migration of Syrian citizens, the refugees, that totally overwhelmed Europe and their citizens, and that definitely reveals and draws an uncanny face and image of Europe. And I would rather try to bring into focus a current state and the possible definition of the global and permanent war. So bearing in mind that the images of war often do not represent, but rather reproduce the political meaning of the war today. So to discuss and to try to understand the meaning of the and the definition of the new war, the global war, the permanent war, through images. So for that reason, I would like to talk about the project, which is called Container. And there is also this undertitle that I sometimes change, but maybe it can be like photography by other means. So it is an ongoing project that started in 2004, and it tries to learn and to define what is the name of the war today. We still don't have a name for this war. So it is about to explore given policies and strategies of the so-called preventive war, or in the given context constituted by the politics of the permanent war, which is the war on terror. So in this new type of war that actually seeks for a new name, we can maybe ask, what is the name of this war? And we know that until 2001, the war had been seen, as Clausewitz defined it, and at the time, that it is a politics by armed means. So, but by declaring the war on a terrorist group, the term war had acquired a new meaning. The new type of war introduced ideological criminalization, mechanisms outlawing certain ethnic groups, religious communities, and the whole states. So, and it is at the same time an attempt to go beyond photography as a medium, to go from a representative mode of art and to search for a different kind and forms of art, but not just for the sake of art, but in order to understand what does it mean to produce an image of the war. So image of a war that is being investigated in this project took place in northern Afghanistan in 2001. At the end of November, it was in Mazar-e-Sharif, where thousands of Taliban warriors were surrounded by the Northern Alliance, which was controlled by the US Army. And these war prisoners were loaded into sealed shipping containers. Each container took about more than 200 people, and some even, much more. So they were shipped through the desert towards the Sheberghan prison and kept without food, without water, and air for several days during their trip. And just to, something that was a common thing that was let's say, happened very often, in order not to produce a war crime, actually to avoid a war crime, in many cases, prisoners were put into the container and left in the desert in order to burn out, actually, and that nobody really killed them. So this was somehow a usual, from 97, it was a kind of a usual thing that was issued, thing that was going on. And actually, when people started begging for air, the Northern Alliance troop fired at the containers. Very, very similar to the film Heat. I don't know if you know this. So it was, it's actually the same the same act. Very. So those who survived were shot and buried in mass graves in Dasht El Eil. So we could read about this 1 year later, and about this massacre we could read actually in the Newsweek. But something, let's say, unusual and something very significant and symptomatic happened actually, that there was not a single image of this crime that could be seen in the media or anywhere else, and something what we could also what I know and we know now is actually that there was no image, never actually. So, but this opened the question, an important question: what can we see and find about any war, and what is that we can find about the war through images? So I started from the difference that Alain Badiou introduced when he was analyzing the war of images used at the very beginning of the second Iraq-US war. And he puts war images into 3 categories. And it was based on the protocol of their distribution, the way they were distributed. So these are not the war of image, the images of the war, but the war of these images. So images used, the first category are images that are used or propagated by both warring sides. Images used, then the second is images used only by one side, and the images not shown by either side, so images that nobody wants to see. So based on this analysis, I tried to open up the possibility for the creation of the 4th category of war images, that would be that of producing a fictitious photograph, but a fictitious photograph of a real event, something that can be called true fiction. So to produce a photography that will be a fictional image of a real event. In this particular case, it means actually to follow very closely and to investigate, actually how to produce this image. So in order to create this non-existing photo, in which we have this bullet-ridden container as a most important, let's say, I had to create a kind of a scenography and to find actually a props that will help to produce this image. So this means we had to make holes in the container, but instead of drilling the holes and probably make a lot of mistakes and it will appear unrealistic, I decided to use real weapons to shoot into the container. So for that reason, we had to go through the process of a reconstruction, but I would rather say a construction. And so firstly, I had to purchase a container, then to find a place where we can shoot, because you cannot shoot everywhere, and then to find a weapon, to find a shooting range. So then I had to find a weapon, but the weapon that will be strong enough to go through this thick metal container, and then actually also to find 200 people who are going inside the container and accept to be photographed. So I produced, in the meantime, images, photos that at the end I decided not to use, either to exhibit. So, and the reason was actually that I realized that behind these newly established images and photos, certain process emerged that should be traced. I could see at that time that material much more valuable than these photographs has emerged during this reconstruction, leading this project to a very different direction and establishing actually something very new, which was actually constructing, not anymore about reconstruction. So which in this particular case means to follow very closely and to investigate the processes behind the image, of the production of the image. So through this, we will have a chance to discover other regimes and structures of visibility. So in this case, it was to follow and to reveal the process of reconstruction, to trace the history of each object and person taking part in the reconstruction. So, like, for example, which guns were used for the reconstruction, which ammunition was available, and who are the shooters of the reconstruction? How did we find, and what was at the shooting range, actually? How, was it possible to find it, and where did it happen at the end? So the first reconstruction took place in Serbia, in Belgrade, in the sports club called Milicioner, which means policeman. By tracing the history of each object and the person that took place, we succeeded actually to make visible, to reconstruct actually the whole network of military, economic, and political interrelations revealed. So it became active during the process of reconstruction and began to tell us its own story. So we had to use a weapon that was powerful enough, with ammunition that has this impact to go through this metal. So this turned to be an automatic weapon. It had to be. It was a Kalashnikov, in this case AK-47. And the ammunition was 7.62, 39 millimeters. So the bullets were produced in 1989 in former Yugoslavia. So this is happening in 2004, the first reconstruction. So it was for 1988 in Bosnia. So right after it was produced in 89, they were moved to Kosovo, where they were first used to kill demonstrants in 1989, and later used during the war in the late 90s, but on Kosovo. So the remains of this stock of ammunition, which were used in a reconstruction, followed the Serbian army's retreat from Kosovo in 1999 and were brought back to Belgrade. Back to Belgrade, this is interesting, from where the politics comes. So by reconstructing a war crime that happened in Afghanistan, by going through the process of reconstruction, in Belgrade, in Serbia, war crimes in Yugoslavia became visible. And I will, yeah.
Ja mislim da je ovo bilo u Alžiru, na gradilištu. Pa znate šta, to kad se sredi, to je jedna lepa garsonjerica u minijaturi. Imate toalet, imate tuš, imate malu kuhinju sa nišom, imate dva lepa ležaja, orman, 100 stolice, iste toga se napravi roštilj. Tiho je živeo u tom kontejneru. Pa jedno.
To Kalašnikov, je li tako? Jest. A šta to znači pojedinačno, a šta znači?
Može pojedinačno sporo, pojedinačno brzo, kako vam odgovara.
Znači ne ono rafalno da brzo trešti, nego skoro će da bude rafalno.
Ali ne rafalno. Meni treba efekat rafala. Znači, vi pucite kako hoćete.
Ali dobijete
Jeste, ovako, samo ja bi, na primjer, da kažemo, vidjet ćemo, doćemo jednom trenutka do količine koja je ta. A recite mi ovih, s kojim ćemo mecima da pucamo?
Bojevim mecima, kako ćete...
A koji su to meci?
7,62 puta 39.
A odakle su, gde su oni proizvedeni, ti meci?
Čekaj, vi to o mene nešto pitate ovako, šta je u problem?
Ne, nije problem.
Ne, nego samo ih zanima.
Šta mene zanima? Ne, mene zanima gde mogu da budu proizvedeni meci koji probiju ovaj kontejner.
Pošto mi ne znamo, mi stvarno ne znamo ništa o tome, pa nas interesuju svi ti detalji.
Ima nekoliko vrsta...
Ta municija se koristi za sportska takmičenja, znači to je sportska municija, može da posluži za sportsku i za... Naravno, to je municija koja se koristi u sve svrhe, znači.
Koje to sve svrhe?
Kako misliš koje su?
Pa ne, interesuje me. Zašto se koristi municija, pa da.
Pa zašto se koristi municija, sam misliš?
Pa ne, ja znam.
Za pucanje
I za pucanje. Čemu služi to pucanje?
Čekaj, šta hoćeš da me navedeš da ti kažem?
Pa to što...
Ne razumeš šta vi u stvari hoćete da ja radim?
Ne, hoćete...
Hoćete ja da vam odredim?
Hoćemo, ali samo za...
Dajte molim vas da...
Vidite, ta municija vojnička, znači koja se koristi u tim ratnim uslovima. Postoji više vrsta.
Čekaj, kako možeš ti da povežeš ovaj kontejner koji je izbušen i ubaciš tamo u ovaj izbušen kontejner, napraviš jednu scenu sa jedno 20 ljudi koji su jedni preko drugih sa onako crvenom farbom. Šta ja posle tebi da radim? Šta misliš?
Da me obesi.
Pa da to obesi, hvala Bogu.
Pa da.
Pa šta misliš da ću da ti radim nešto drugo? To ti ja pričam, znači nemoj da me dovodiš u takvu situaciju.
Da razmišljamo.
Pa šta da ti kažeš? Ja i ti možda budemo drugari što hoćeš, ali da me dovedeš u takvu situaciju.
Pa dobro, ništa, sad ste me vi malo, kako kažem, onako ne osjećam se više tako
ne osjećam se
slobodno, da možemo da razgovaramo o tome, kako kažem, o svim detaljima, nego sad se suzdržavam, ali to me nervira.
Samo me pitaj.
I šta, gde su oni pohrani, otkud oni, da dobro, to sad ne smem da pitam.
Šta?
Pa otkud oni iz Bosne sad ovde, mislim... Kako se to distribuira?
Mi smo proizvođači oružja.
Znate kako je ti to govorio, spremat ćemo se kao da će sutra da počne rat, a živet ćemo kao da će večno da traje mir. U tom spremanju da će sutra bude rat, bila je vojska, Jugoslovenska narodna armija, bila je teritorijalna odbrana, civilna odbrana i policija. Odnosno milicija tada. Znači sve te formacije su imale svoje magacine i svoje naoružanje, municiju i tako dalje, opremu. Pa je to, kao što vidite, u Srbiji još uvek toga ima jer to nije potrošeno. Mi nismo ratovali nešto ozbiljno.
Ovo puca mnogo dobro.
Dobro, ja idem ovo dalje. So this was the first shooting, and we had just to pay for this. And when we paid, it was, let's say, nobody asked us why we are doing this, etc. So this was just, there is also a short, very short video that shows people coming in. Treba još. Evo. Ha? So after Belgrade, I tested and repeated the reconstruction in other places. So it was at the Biennale of Sydney, at the Gyumri Biennale, this was in Armenia, and lately in Moscow. So an attempt in the context of an exhibition in Tate, Liverpool failed. And each time, different locations, contexts were activated by the reconstruction. So the conditions of shooting into the container produce different scenarios in different states. So each situation has its specificity affecting the reconstruction, and in this moment where this particular artwork takes place. So this is the moment actually of shooting. So in Australia, neither the army nor the police were willing to shoot at the containers, so we had to find another way and find private professionals. In this case, there were kangaroo hunters, so they were willing to shoot at the container, but only on very isolated private estate. And it was also connected to the guy who was actually scenographer of Superman. So this has to be in a totally, let's say, unexpected place. So the local reality revealed the wider context. This is a privatization of war through the outsourcing of violence. So we had to hire somebody actually who is a private agency also, but actually it is. So war by hiring private professional forces, which is actually reciprocal to the main contribution of the modern war, the permanent war on terror. So this new form of war, the war that is privatized and subject of outsourcing, as for example private contractors such as Blakewater was, an agency that led the waged war in Iraq. So in Australia, our only option was to hire professionals to shoot at the container. So they were using the same type of ammunition. So the Australian army used this in Iraq war, the same type of ammunition. And the third reconstruction in Armenia brought a major change. So the container itself wasn't obtainable in Armenia. It was impossible to get this. So after 20 years, so over 20 years ago, shortly after the earthquake in Gyumri in 1988, Soviet Union broke up. So through the ongoing political and transition crisis, the rebuild of the city didn't happen, so the container was still, after 20 years, a living space for entire families. So people were living there. So within these still precarious conditions, it was impossible to get a container and destroy it. And again, in this reconstruction, we observe a reflection of the political military situation 20 years after the collapse of the Soviet Union that calculated instability of the countries such as Armenia, which are used as geopolitical buffer zone. I don't have now to explain actually that there was a demonstration where 8 people were killed just like 2 months before, and by asking for a weapon, it was a weapon ban. So in this moment, actually, we went directly into the, let's say, hottest point of the political. So in UK, in the Liverpool day, it didn't work at the end. There were 2 options: to shoot at the container in the BBC production studio or import from somewhere else an already riddled container. So to riddle somewhere abroad and then import in UK as an object of art. So in Russia recently, so this is now at the end, we started collaborating with the Russian army magazine that would organize the shooting. So they were interested to organize shooting, but when they realized the container project is a reconstruction that is connected to the war of Afghanistan, they stopped the collaboration. And then one of the biggest gallery in Moscow, which is called Triumph Gallery, thanks to the co-owner Dmitry Khahin and his very private contacts, as a personal favor, we could work with Russian Army Special Forces. So they didn't ask us to pay. They didn't ask us anything. It was just a favor. But it was a very complex, let's say. We were driven 2 hours out of Moscow. And then we were guided through the woods next 2 hours. We met some people there. And we were told not to ask anything or not to film. We had to wait in the car. And then we arrived, and we got, this is Dmitry Khanin, I don't know how to pronounce this, Kyankin. So Dmitry Kyankin, you know, when I see it in English, let's say translation, Dmitry, it's actually Kyankin. Dmitry Kyankin, who introduced the weapon. And yes, there were plans how to, and then the guys told us actually to start filming just when they are prepared and masked. So definitely. So yeah, then when they're masked, we could photograph them. Maybe I could just. I will go very briefly. So they had prepared a very well organized shooting site, which was. Yeah, this was very, so this project, the container or photography by other means, so with each new setting, production examines actually and investigates by making visible the ways in which local networks and relationships of the military, economy, and politics operate within the contemporary war, the permanent war. So through this work, the main feature of contemporary war becomes fully visible. That is the absence of differentiation between war and peace. That is simply a definition of an important aspect of contemporary war. This is actually that there is no, peace is not inscribed in the new definition of the war. So it's not part of it. So this absence becomes visible on the site where actual reconstruction takes place. So, and at the end, as an object or sculpture, this let's say, it is actually just a result of the local reconstruction processes. It becomes an index of war on terror and helps to learn and to understand the possible new definition of the war on terror or permanent war today. So thank you. This was.